Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Space Week New York 2024 spotlight event for Ursa Space. I am Patrick Chase, co-founder of Empire Space, and we are joined today by Julie Baker, the co-founder and COO of Ursa Space. Empire Space, for those who might not be familiar, is a nonprofit that serves as the networking and research hub for the New York space ecosystem. We work to understand all the players working in space and aerospace throughout New York to help them grow and to identify the challenges facing the sector so we can establish new opportunities in the future. Ursa Space, I will give them a brief introduction, and then we'll turn the floor over to our guest. Ursa Space is an Ithaca-based satellite intelligence company that provides business and government decision makers access to on-demand analytic solutions. They have extensive experience with data fusion. They have access to a lot of high-quality satellite data. They detect real-time changes and they analyze patterns in the physical world to understand what's happening at a deeper level and then pass that on to various customers. So we are very thankful to have co-founder Julie Baker here with us today to tell us a little bit more. Hello, Julie.
Hello, Patrick. It's great to see you again, and we're delighted to be able to share information about Ursa Space.
Absolutely. And so briefly, I do want to say my co-founder, Evan Lerner, is here on the call from Empire Space, so he may chime in at some point in the future. So I guess to start off for folks who might not be familiar with Ursa Space, just tell us how you got started. Kind of what was the vision? What was the moment that kind of led to Ursa coming into being, and then how have you grown over the years?
Great question. So in 2014, it was in the heyday of the optical satellite growth. So Planet Labs, Skybox Imaging, a lot of optical satellites were being launched, and they didn't really fulfill the complete promise of what people were expecting because of clouds. Optical satellites can't see through clouds, and obviously half the time the Earth is dark, so they don't work then either. So what the initial premise of the company was to create a small radar satellite which can cut through clouds and can also work at night because it's an active sensor. And we were going to create enough of those smaller SAR satellites to cover the Earth, every place on the Earth every 5 minutes. So we had a model that we were going to do this, and we started out with that initial goal, and that's why we're Ursa Space Systems. It's Ursa because of the Ursa Major, Ursa Minor constellation, because we were going to build a constellation, and it's the bear because our founder, Adam Maher, went to Cornell. The bear is their mascot. So that's the backstory on how the name got started. But so we came together in trying to do this. We weren't able to bootstrap because obviously from the very beginning we needed a lot of capital. It was going to be very expensive. So we started fundraising from the very beginning. We had initial investors in seed funding and some accelerators. And what happened is that we had worked with some other folks to provide some prototypes. So we had built some prototypes internally. We had hired a developer to build car counting, ship detection, and oil tank monitoring. And the thing that got traction with our customers was oil tank monitoring. So looking at how much oil is in one of these floating top oil tanks. And so we started looking at that application and building building that. At the same time, we were trying to build satellites too. So we were working with Cornell, we were working with other vendors in upstate New York. And there are a lot of reasons why we settled in Ithaca, but I'll probably get to that in a little bit. But the premise of the company was initially to do everything. So building and operating satellites, building applications. And at the end of the time, at the end of 2 years, we pivoted to focus on software because we realized that the folks we were getting imagery from kept saying, well, we have additional capacity on the existing satellites. Why don't you start with those? And we can serve up imagery to you. And that's how the virtual constellation idea got started, is that we would use the other vendors, the data from the other vendors, and focus on radar analytics, SAR, synthetic aperture radar analytics, and create subscription products. So that was the pivot. And then in the beginning of 2017, we focused solely on the software development and started growing from there. And that's really when we started getting a lot more funding, actually, when we focused. That's something that we learned over that time period, that you have to really focus.
Interesting. I would imagine that is a lesson that probably applies to lots of different ventures. So your core purpose is connecting this high quality satellite data to customers who need it most. So I guess so what was was there an aha moment with the founders that, like, this is a need that's not currently being filled or needs to be filled more creatively? Was it kind of an evolution over time that it just seemed like this window had now opened? I guess what was the impetus to say that, this is a gap that's not currently being filled and we have a unique approach to fill it?
So that came about through the first 2 years when we were trying to do everything. So we went out, we talked to hundreds of potential customers about the promise of what we were going to be delivering. And part of that interview process were questions about, had they even tried using satellite data? And some actually had tried, but had not been very successful in either getting access to it or even opening up the files on their computers. They're fairly large files. And then once you have something, how do you interpret it? Especially with SAR, it's not intuitive, and you really need a lot of specialized expertise to be able to even look at a SAR image and understand what is in the image, plus developing analytics. So what we saw is that there was this white space in the market for someone who would be the easy button for SAR, and that we could help people order the imagery that they needed, because it's a very, there's hundreds of parameters, lots of different modes. It takes some understanding even to order the correct images that give you the insights that you want. And so it was that. And, in the very beginning, it took us weeks to get imagery from vendors, because at the time in 2014, 10 years ago now, a lot has changed, and a lot has improved. And now we're able to get imagery within hours of tasking, sometimes even minutes, depending on where the satellites are and the ground stations are. So anyway, the evolution of what we were trying to do as a company to provide these insights on the data and helping people actually get access to the data is how that all came about.
I guess a quick sidebar. So you noticed how things have changed over the last 10 years with the vendors becoming, I guess, more willing to partner and share their data. I guess I didn't know if you could just touch on.
No, it's more of a capability of the way that they're able to do things more quickly. And a lot of them have APIs now for ordering or application programming interfaces that we can connect to. And there's just a lot more speed. So what we do is we orchestrate a lot of the collection from the different vendors for the different standard subscriptions that we offer, as well as when people come to us asking for kind of ad hoc analytics for site monitoring for different things that we're not monitoring on a regular basis. So we connect that that process, but it's a lot of technical capability and improvement. Some of them weren't even in the cloud 10 years ago.
Gotcha. My, how things can change.
Yes.
So you mentioned that filtering process when you were speaking to potential customers. I mean, I think we all know that the market for remote sensing Earth observation data is huge. It's grown exponentially with time. Pretty much any industry or application probably has some kind of use for satellite data. So how have you found that there is a specific market or niche that you are really thriving in? How is it you're trying to serve all the customers who want the data? Are there specific customers who are more in need? Is it smaller companies? Is it governments? Is it nonprofit actors? So yeah, I guess how in terms of addressing the market and sorting through all the potential customers, I guess just talk about that process a little bit.
Yeah. So at this point, you point out that that it's difficult to focus because it is so applicable to so many different use cases. What we have done over the past 10 years is we really focus on two major market sectors. One is commodities, and this is the more commercial use case, but I'll talk about overlapping customers in just a minute. But commodities, looking at energy. So, for example, oil storage all over the world, coal pile monitoring, how these goods move around the world, metals with iron ore, supply chain monitoring, basically, too. And then on the other side, there's commodities, and then there's global security. And this is what you would expect from some of the government customers, although they are also interested in the commodities products, because a lot of these things are related to security. Oil has a very big security component. Materials moving around the world, from the economic analysis standpoint, when you're looking at nations and the U.S. is very interested in the economy, right? Because we want to make sure that our citizens can prosper and anticipate problems. So some of the other things that global security is interested in, looking at specific sites, how things are changing there, if there are hot spots around the world, or if there are natural disasters, things like that. And we can go into more detail later. But what it typically is about is what has changed and what can people interpret from the changes and helping them make decisions about risk, about the economy, about what may happen if certain events happen.
Interesting. And so those two markets, kind of the commodities and securities, were those the markets that you had anticipated serving when you first got started? Did you kind of have an eye, oh, we think this is something, we know who these customers are? Did that turn out to be a surprise? Have you found over the years, applications like, wow, I had no idea that these people would be interested in this kind of product?
So early on, the prototypes that we developed, the car counting, the vessel detection, the oil storage measurement, we got feedback early on that customers were interested. The finance industry was really interested in knowing about the oil storage measurements all over the world. And we developed that global product in 2018. We started in one region and went region by region around the world to develop that product. So I think we've had a very strong commodities focus from the very beginning. We could have hand in other kinds of industry, insurance or agriculture or other things, but we have continued to focus on commodities because of the overlap between our customers. And I think from the very beginning, I thought, and maybe it's my growth as somebody new to the industry, I thought that what the two markets, global security and commodities, customers wanted was kind of different. But as I have grown in my role, I've realized that they really want very similar things, and everybody wants things faster. So that's,
I don't think society has gotten more patient over time. So I think I very much agree with that one. And then just another brief question about your customers. Is there a type that you found over the years? Is it smaller firms that don't have the in-house capacity? Is it larger firms who, are happy to outsource? Is it kind of a little bit of everything, or is there a type in terms of, size or age of the customer? Is it newer firms who are kind of seeking this access to help them get a leg up? Is it established firms who know that they don't have the ability to generate it? So is there any kind of differentiator in there?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So I think the answer is we try to serve a variety of customers, but with different offerings. And typically it's kind of a different licensing model. So a smaller customer will be using the data internally for their own benefit. So that would be a lower price point. Another larger customer might want to build a product on top of our data. So that would be a little bit higher price point. And then some customers want to resell our products or wrap it into the products that they sell. So that would be an even higher price point. So I think we have a range of offerings that different size customers can use.
And you had mentioned it, but I guess just to clarify for the audience, you have two modes, right? You have a standard subscription model at various levels, and then you also have the ability to do ad hoc projects of various sizes.
Right. And people can tell us where do they want to look, what do they want to look for, and how frequently they want to look, and all of those things. How many places do you want to look at once? It all adds up, but typically we try to find the best solution with the customer.
And then I guess to return to something we had mentioned at the very beginning, Ursa Space is Ithaca-based. I know that one of your co-founders has ties to Cornell, but I guess just tell us a little bit more about why Ithaca made sense in the first place.
Yeah.
And then why Ithaca has continued to make sense, as you've grown. Because we can speak as Empire Space. A lot of firms start up in New York, but oftentimes there's that gravitational pull towards, Florida or Texas or California. So yeah, just tell us a story about why Ithaca to start and why Ithaca to stay.
Okay, that's so I told a little bit about the initial premise of Ursa Space Systems in that we were building SAR satellites. So initially, Adam Maher graduated from Cornell. He grew up in upstate New York, so he was aware of some of the resources here. The Mason Peck at Cornell had just come back at the time from a stint at NASA, and he was returning to Cornell to come back to the small sat laboratory, that group that he ran. So that was a source of talent that could be provided, as well as other universities in upstate New York. So it was talent. It was the fact that there's a long history in upstate New York of companies with expertise in the payload or the sensors. So the Air Force Research Laboratory in Rome, New York, used to be the Sensors Directorate, and there are companies that grew up around Rome, contacts there that were companies that we reached out to work with initially. The other thing that was happening at the time was this huge interest in entrepreneurship in Ithaca. And the consortium of Cornell, Ithaca College, and TC3 came together in the Rev Startup Works. And all through that fall, they had networking events, and, Adam initially contacted them. And that's actually how I got connected to Adam in the first place, because I had gotten interested in entrepreneurship. And the entrepreneurs in residence, Ken Rother, Brian Bauer, Brad Treat, had all, been very, there were a lot of networking events. And anyway, after I became interested in trying to find a team that was forming, Brad Treat actually introduced me to Adam and several other people, but the opportunity at Ursa Space Systems was just too exciting. And so that's how I joined in January of 2015 to become a co-founder. So what else did I think I mentioned the major points, not to mention Ithaca's beautiful, and the cost of living is not quite as high as the Bay Area. Right. So there were a lot of reasons to set up in Ithaca, and to stay in Ithaca. We've had a lot of support from investors based in New York. RRE in New York City, headquartered there, has been a very strong supporter. Will Porteous is on our board. We've had Empire State Development has supported us. We've had strategic investors. NEA is an investor. Lots of New York, great support from the investor community in New York. Also, some strategic investors, Citi and S&P Global, have offices in New York City. So,
okay, well, that's very heartening to hear. We like to hear that story, and Ithaca is noted. It really is kind of that, not necessarily ideal, but it has kind of all of the components you would need. It has the dominant universities. It has an active entrepreneurship culture, and things like that. So it's heartening to hear that a firm like Ursa could set up shop in upstate New York and grow and succeed and that is a model that I guess we hope to replicate to other companies in the future. So then I guess to turn to a little bit bigger picture, but some of the challenges facing the space data industry right now. Are there questions of, talent? Are there gaps in specialties that aren't being graduated from colleges? Is it financing? Are there concerns with, regulations, whether they're unclear or anything like that? So I guess what are the road bumps facing kind of Ursa, but then other companies in the space data field?
Well, space is hard. It's not an easy, people need to love the challenge of it. It's not an easy endeavor, and it has not been an easy economy for some over the past few years. The investor community and all of the economy kind of tightened up a bit. So we've been very fortunate. Our investors have been very supportive of us, but some companies have not been so fortunate. And we believe in the community model. We rely on the community and all of our vendors. Everybody wins. If anybody wins, we all win, because it helps the whole community. And we so you asked about some of our suppliers have been acquired, or the changeover there, some of those issues. So talent is always an issue. One thing that happened during COVID is it didn't take us but a couple of days to become a fully remote organization. So we were able to kind of adapt during that time, because we weren't building satellites. We didn't have a manufacturing site where people had to be there to make anything happen. So we were fortunate in that respect. But the market changed over that period. The oil market kind of dropped because nobody was traveling, and so our oil storage product was not as great of an interest during that time, which gave us an opportunity to look at other things, and we expanded our capabilities. So it was kind of a blessing there. But so just the general landscape of the economy and talent. When we went fully remote, we were able to keep about half of our employees based in Ithaca, which I think is pretty good. We've expanded to be able to hire expertise across the U.S. and really try to find the best talent we can. It is sometimes, I think it's sometimes difficult for junior employees to work remotely because they don't have the experience of an office environment if they're coming right out of the university. So some of the things that we do are really work with the teams to promote really good team bonding. Let's see, other issues that you talked about. I was going to say yes, all of them, all of the roadblocks.
But so yeah, those challenges. We're very glad that Ursa has been able to survive some of the bumps over the years. And I guess being able to shift fully remote really probably was helpful during that time. So I guess looking towards the future, are there future events that Ursa will be attending? Any announcements or special headlines that people should be keeping their eye on for the rest of 2024?
Well, a couple of things. So we recently launched our stockpile monitoring product. So that's a recent product launch that's going to keep improving over time. And then we are seeing quite a lot of pull. Over the years, we've worked with a lot of humanitarian efforts and disaster response. So we've become recognized for being able to quickly pull together information for people who are trying to respond to things like floods, earthquakes, landslides, oil spills. Um, hurricane season is coming up. I'm sure we're going to have opportunities to help. That's just the kinds of capabilities that we've developed and how they can address the situations to help people. I think we're becoming better at rapid response and just having it's gratifying to be able to help. Let me just say that.
No, and I know from listening to some of your previous talks, I think it really is worth just kind of mentioning for a second some of those, really applicable use cases. Firefighters who are dealing with wildfires, humanitarian relief, things of that nature is really, there's lots of fantastic uses for satellite data. There's lots of economic benefits that come with it. But I think it really is important to take a second and just, there are some really powerful human benefits and societal benefits to having access to this kind of rapidly updated, easy to disseminate, easy to access data for some of those really critical issues. When it's moving beyond economics and you move more into the realm of life or death or life-changing circumstances for communities.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize what we can do. When there's a flood or a fire, or you need to get supplies into people, we can look at where are the roads blocked, where are the ingress and egress points. We have a lot of analytics and analysts who can pull all of the information together and support people on the ground trying to make things better for the folks in those situations.
So I guess I would just extend a thank you to you guys for that. That is an important product, and it is one of the benefits to growing the space economy. These are some of the applications that I think often get left by the side, but really can be some of the most transformative. So I know I put the links in the chat for those who are going to be watching the video later. Website ursaspace.com. They have links there to LinkedIn and Twitter as well. That is, we are getting close to the end of the formal interview portion. We have about 20 minutes left. So I know that there are some folks here in the chat. If people have questions, go ahead. I was just about to say I saw that Alexandre was here, and then I think he just left the call. So I will go ahead and read his question for him. He was nice enough to provide it beforehand. This is from Mr. Alexandre Moreau. What is the biggest risk and constraint for growth in the current market for satellite data?
I think that is a great question, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but from what I have experienced at Ursa Space and in watching others, I think there's a danger in trying to do everything, and it's easy. I mentioned this earlier. It would be easy to try to do too many things and then not be able to do any one of them well. So we really focused on the software analytics and the insights piece. I think for data providers, it's hard to get these these satellites up in orbit and maintain and support them and innovate and iterate and keep launching and, you know, fundraising, and it's a lot. So if I think just focusing is the biggest thing that people can do.
Well, that was a fantastic answer. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions, comments, thoughts from any of the folks who are here in the audience?
Yeah, Patrick, I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
For setting this up, and Julie, great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, I'm very excited to learn more. Excited about the new stockpile monitoring solution. That's fantastic. And as far as the, what you're looking for as far as change detection for stockpiles, is there a specific change that you look for within stockpiles that may be different than metals or coal piles? Or are they similar?
Yeah, so it's not an easy problem to solve, to figure out how much volume is in a stockpile to begin with. And that's another thing that we do, is look at the characteristics of the different sites. Are they piled up all over the place? Is it one big pile? How large is it typically? What's the pattern of life in for a particular site? So it really, I guess my answer is it depends on the site, what we're actually looking for.
No, thank you. Is it okay if I ask a follow-on question?
Yeah, no, please go ahead, Mike. You are much more an industry expert than I am here, so please go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's exciting on the commodity side. One of the things I found is that, within the markets or financial services in general, they don't really share what they're doing, how they're doing it, because it's such a big advantage. Are you finding the same thing where your customers say, hey, this is our alpha and we're, we keep it to ourselves, or do they share with you some of the ways that they use the data?
Well, it really, we benefit from working with all of our customers, and some are more engaged as strategic partners.
Mhm.
And this is where we're solving problems together. With regards to the alpha, they don't share alpha with us. That, for people who don't know, that's information that is real sensitive to a certain financial firm, where they know how to make money. They try to use they use our data a lot of times for generating that alpha, but that's not something that they share with us. So
I didn't expect so. Thank you.
mm-hmm.
I just had a question. So you mentioned, to kind of go back to the global security. Does Ursa have international customers, or through various, is it purely kind of an American market?
So we have a U.S. interest, and we do have interest from countries all over the world. I think it's another place where Ithaca is very helpful, or being in New York is very helpful, because we can jump across the pond fairly easily to meet with folks in Europe. But there's interest in these capabilities from international customers.
Yeah. And I would imagine stuff, certain data is freely available, but I know that pretty quickly when you get into the security realm, you can run into various, not necessarily arms control, but things can get touchy when you get to sharing data and stuff internationally. So I didn't know.
Yeah, and we
how
are very, yeah, we're very concerned about obviously any kind of export control issues. One of the things that happens is that when we provide the derived analytics, we don't also provide some of the source data, and so it helps from a regulatory point of view that we're not sharing a lot of the sensitive information. And yeah, so
No, interesting answer. Evan, did you have something? I saw you popped on there.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. And the answer may be like a simple binary no. So I think on the same topic of international opportunities and like collaborations, does the proximity to Canada help at all? I think you mentioned Europe, but I would think that being so close to Canada may lend itself opportunities, or maybe not.
well, we do have collaborations with Canadian firms, and that it is yeah, it's very, very nice to have those suppliers and collaborations going.
I think I had another kind of question, and this struck me when we met at the Ithaca dinner. Thanks again, Mike, for putting that together a few weeks ago. With the kind of the range of talent that Ursa has on staff. So I guess looking to the future, when a company like Ursa is looking to grow the staff, are there particular areas that you find you wish you had like a larger pool? Is it, you need more people who are conversant in AI? Is it more the engineering side? Is it software development? Because I know that there's a range of different, abilities that you need at a firm like Ursa. So I guess how has that evolved? The skills that you need folks who are graduating college from, and are you finding any bottlenecks or just less people trained in this specialty than we would like to see?
Typically, there's not a lot of training for people in synthetic aperture radar analytics or geospatial software development in general. I think geospatial problems have their unique challenges. Databases and searching geospatial data is not the same as some other kind of more structured data. The things that we see from the folks coming right out of college, we actually have some GIS analysts who are very capable, and we have a very robust training program that we put them through, like 30, 60, 90-day goals at the beginning. And that's something that we found that they have the expertise to be able to quickly come up to speed and understand what's needed. We've had a need from time to time for various subject matter expertise to fill in, because as I said, you can't be everything. We try not to do it all, but we sometimes like to bring in specialized expertise to help understand what the customer need is.
Oh, okay. So if a customer comes from a new industry or something that Ursa
Right.
hasn't, you might bring someone in to just advise on the dynamics. Interesting.
Right.
All right.
Right. Evan.
Raised his hand.
I have a follow-up on the
Yeah.
same topic, and something like a callback to earlier. So I think you said when you went remote, it opened up, like, so you have, I think you said like half or something of the staff is still pretty much local, but it opened up the opportunity to find talent across the country. and really bring in the best talent. So I was wondering if you've seen any trends in sort of hiring, sort of like what talent you need to go out and find across the country versus what talent you're able to find locally, if there's anything there.
I think one thing is that there's a lot of government expertise in upstate New York because of AFRL in Rome. I think there's not a lot of the more commercially focused talent in some cases. There are with people with experience, in those commercial, bigger companies, commercial companies. So I think that's where we may go out to other locations. The folks coming out of the university are great, but they don't have a lot of experience with larger companies if they are not, people just coming out of school.
I know we just had a new addition. So I know we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but I did want to say hi to Alexander. I didn't know if he had a question or we're just popping by to say hello.
Hi, Alex.
Oh, there we go.
No question in particular for me, but yeah, just popping by.
All right, don't worry. The full thing will be up on YouTube later today, so we'll be sure to send that around so you can go back and catch up on the rest of the interview.
Great.
I may actually, I mean, as with all interviews, I could probably go for another half an hour, 45 minutes just with fun follow-ups. But we only have another handful of minutes here. I didn't know if anyone else had any follow-ups, questions from anyone in the audience, or in turn, Julie, if there were any final points that you wanted to hammer home.
Yeah, I had one more question.
Yeah.
It's around a triggering system. Do the customers get triggers on any change detection, or are there triggers internally to Ursa employees to say, hey, something big happened here, maybe take a look?
Yeah. So,
That's a good question.
That is a great question, and we've got some alerting mechanisms that alert us to various kinds of things. We are I think we would love to put some more of that kind of into the products. Some of the things that you mentioned earlier, Patrick, about the ways that people can interact with us. We have blogs, we have weekly blogs. A lot of these things are kind of themes that get brought out in our LinkedIn posts, and we have shorter little blurbs on Twitter. But more of the real-time alerting is something that I think we can safely say is in our future.
Excellent. Well, that sounds very exciting. It sounds
Thank you for that too, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mike, for all of the fantastic follow-up questions. I do want to go ahead and thank everyone who attended today's event. We do want to extend a very deep thank you to Julie Baker for taking time out of her day to share the story of Ursa Space, how you guys got started, how you learned to focus, and how when you got your focus, some really exciting things started to happen. There are some really great insights about getting started up in Ithaca and how that community was helpful to your founding and to your growth over the years, and has kind of kept you anchored in upstate New York. think there's a lot of interesting things going on in the space data, space intelligence field. It seems to be very fluid. There's been a lot of changes over the last 10 years. You mentioned a lot of that. The growing kind of the easing of some of the logistics burdens, how companies can communicate with each other, and how the data just moves so much faster than it did when you were getting up and running 10 years ago. I think it was really helpful for you to highlight some of the pros and cons of moving to remote work and some of the issues faced with talent and stuff like that. So this really was a fantastic conversation. We are very thankful to you, Julie, for taking the time. I would leave it open. Any final thoughts, comments, questions from anyone here before we go ahead and wrap this up?
I can just say one more thing about Ithaca. So although we do have a remote workforce, we love to get together, and it's like this buzz when everybody's talking, and we just love getting together in person, which we try to do as much as we can. And people love coming to Ithaca, so that's another plug for being in Ithaca. It's not often that you get such a beautiful place to live and work. And I would like to just wrap up by saying thank you to you, Patrick and Evan, for the work that you're doing and the efforts of New York Space Week and the things that you're doing to kind of promote interest in what we all do. And it's really it's gratifying, and I'm honored to have been asked to speak. Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I hit the wrong button.
Hit the wrong button. But thank you very much for that, Julie. Evan and I really do love the work that we do. It's getting tougher to just say the two of us, because we do have, like Ursa, Empire Space has been growing over the years. Mike is one of our advisors. So we've been growing, and we really enjoy this week because you're right. It's a chance to just highlight all of the good things that are going on in space in New York, kind of tell that story so more people are aware, and so we can identify, so we can learn those good lessons. And Ursa seems to have a lot of those good lessons. So like, what helps a space company form in New York? Well, you have strong ties to a prominent university. You have a community that's receptive and responsive with the necessary supports. You have access to talent. So hearing more about those good examples, those good lessons, and then how do we kind of replicate that around the state? That's kind of all about what we do here at Empire Space. And we always enjoy getting to hear more about the success of New York-based space companies like Ursa. So thank you very much again for taking the time. Thank you very much, everyone else who joined us today. We will be sending out a link with a full video once it's posted to YouTube. We'll also have links to the Ursa places that Julie mentioned on the website. We'll include the LinkedIn and everything like that. So we'll send that out to everyone who attended and everyone who RSVP'd. And yeah, with that, we are hitting right up against 3 o'clock. So this is our hour. Thank you very much for joining us for the Space Week New York 2024 Spotlight event for Ursa Space Systems. I hope everyone has a fantastic day.
Thank you again.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.